Heyo and welcome to another episode of Pine Harbor County, where we will use and abuse the new operating district mechanic that was introduced in Cities Skylines 2. In the last episode, we repurposed an old oil field into a quarry, added additional industrial workplaces, designed our very first displaced left-hand turn, and ended with a quaint bus ride on a new BRT system. If you happen to miss that episode and want to check it out, then click on the info card above. Or if you're looking for a new Cities Skylines series to binge watch, check out the entire Pine Harbor playlist in the description below. This week we are celebrating our 40th episode with a viewer suggested special. Over the last few weeks we have gathered ideas and voted as a community on what we will be adding to Pine Harbor County. And here are the winners. Thank you everyone who put their ideas forward and to everyone who voted in the poll. I absolutely love these types of builds and I am wicked excited to get to tackle today's designs. So let's not delay and let's jump right on in. Let's start with the first place winner, a luxury downtown hotel. And if you've already guessed that we would be incorporating the hotel landmark, well, then you are right. But I want to add more than just the hotel landmark. I want to fuse in a community pool for the visitors and a water park to add in some excitement around the hotel. Now, I also want to keep this close to our train station, so we will try our best to keep our build within this small block here near the center of downtown, and I want to do this for the two obvious reasons. One, this is a luxury downtown hotel. So we need it to be downtown, and two, it's actually really close to the regional and international train lines, so it'd be very convenient for visitors coming on and off the trains to then just come to the hotel for their stay. So let's start fusing these assets together, but before we do that, let me know down in the comments what hotels you have visited before and what you've considered the most luxurious, and let me know where that was at. For me, I think mine would probably be in New York City close to Times Square. A friend and I chose a hotel mainly for its included breakfast because we were there for just a weekend and we didn't want to have to spend extra money going out to get breakfast. And it honestly was probably one of the best hotels I had ever stayed in. Unfortunately, to this day, I cannot remember which one it was, but I would say for me, luxury included breakfast. So let me know down in the comments what you guys thought was your most luxurious stay in a hotel. In the meantime, let's jump into a time lapse and start fusing some of these together. Alright, next I want to add in some parking to accommodate our visiting guests, probably some taxi stands, and honestly maybe even just a single bus line that can act as a tourism line throughout Bunyan's Rest, connecting all the major landmarks together. That way our visiting tourist can see all the sights there is in Bunyan's Rest that, you know, the capital has to offer. So let's address these items really quick. And I think what we're going to do is put some parking in this area right here. And I'm going to do my best to get the taxi stands here. So let's start with that parking. Next, let's give this hotel a beautiful garden for visitors to roam around. Now, I want to add some of the assets we gained in the detailer's patch, the surface painter, and then also use some custom parks to really hone in on a unique and beautiful area. So let's do this in a beautifying the build time lapse real quick and kind of fill in the rest of this space with some flowers, some gardens, and some parks. Alright, let's get started on our second place winner from the viewer suggested poll, a transit overhaul. For today's overhaul, we are going to look at a few different items. One, the number of vehicles available to us compared to the number of vehicles being used for our current transit line. This way we can determine whether we need more tram depots, train yards, etc. 2, potential expansion of existing lines, especially the trams, trains, and subways, as these were the major transit options I planned for way back in episode 0. 3, the price of the tickets. I want to see, can we inch the price up a bit to help with our deficit without completely dismantling the beautiful ridership numbers that we are currently seeing. This will probably be done while paused and then simulated over a time lapse at the end of the transit overhaul section. So be sure to watch through to the end to see how these changes actually play in effect. So let's start our transit overview by reviewing first our train lines. The Bunyan's Rest to the City of Braeburn train line has about 5,000 passengers with 121% usage. Second place is Pine Grove to Bunyan's Rest with about 600 passengers and 35% usage. We then actually have the interregional Amarillo to Bunyan's Rest train line, which has we'll call it about 170 passengers and a 20% usage. Blackpool to Bunyan's Rest is about 300 passengers and 16%. Bathrick to Bunyan's Rest is about 180 with 11% usage. Saco to Bunyan's Rest is about 38 passengers, we'll call it 40, and 2% usage. And then Ukiyo to Bunyan's Rest is about 16 and 2%. When you're looking at this view here, I want everyone to understand that the dark green train lines are actually the ones that are within Pine Harbor County. The orange lines are interregional and are connecting to the outside areas. So in addition to this, we have 2 different rail yards that are currently working with us, and we have about 25 trains out of our 30 available stock in use. So one rail yard is in Bunyan's Rest, the other is in Pinecrest Junction. Right now, we have a fairly good spread of train lines, with lines reaching out to Blackpool, Braeburn, and Pine Grove. We also have interregional lines connecting to each point of our map for, future reasons. And I wouldn't mind adding another train station just along the Pine Grove line, but in Pinecrest Junction, to help with some of the traffic congestion we receive in that city. Now, this would not result in another line per se, just another station on the existing line itself. And I also think more stations is really just all we need. The spread of the lines itself is adequate for how we have developed thus far. We are arguably lacking train service in areas such as Maplewood. However, because these are smaller rural areas, I think a BRT system connecting them to, say, like, let's take for example Maplewood. Instead, if we had a bus system that connected to the train station in Blackpool, we would arguably be able to better utilize the existing train line without having to put the money forward for more tracks, a train station to upkeep, etc. Now, I do think we could edit some of these lines a bit. For example, I want to actually delete the Ukiyo line. No one is actually taking this line, so it's kind of just a waste of money. And then, for future plans, I'd rather Ukiyo connect to Pine Harbor County via a ship path. However, I will leave Saco as is, despite these reasons, because, future plans. Now, I want to see if we can make our transit a little bit more profitable for us and see if it can tackle some of this deficit at all. And I think what we'll do on the trains is I will come on in and take each train line and increase it about 5 monies. And then stay tuned to the end because we will go through and maybe do like a 1 to 2 month time lapse to watch the numbers here in our transportation tab and our deficit and see if it makes any difference at all. So let's look at our cargo for our train next. And honestly, this is simpler because there aren't ticket prices and passenger ship on it, or passenger riders per each line, but also more complicated because it does fluctuate depending on whether a particular line is importing or exporting a good. So right now, Saco to Pine Grove, it has the most usage with about 200 tons of cargo getting moved at a 17% usage. And the Pine Harbor County cargo line is doing fairly well. It has a huge amount of cargo being moved about it, which I'm very happy about, 468 tons. It only has about an 8% usage, but it's also a incredibly long line. It's 63 kilometers long. So when thinking about the cargo line, I want to delete some of them, but I don't. I think for now we're going to delete the Ukiyo line because, again, future plans. I'll probably actually, now that I'm actually thinking about it out loud, we will probably just come in here. Let's rename this one because we haven't, spoiled these future plans too much. Let's rename this one to the Napor line. I'm gonna leave all of these for now because every now and then when I was running this off camera, I would see that, say, like Blackpool would randomly have cargo on it and actually have some usage. So I think it's definitely depending on where we are in the game, and because I have the game paused right now, it's not going to give us a lot of indicative information on whether we should be keeping the cargo line or not. Because it's not utilizing too many trains, I think we'll be okay because it's, if we expand our passenger train line, we still should have enough trains available to us. So I will also come up here and I am just going to rename these so everything is consistent for, future reasons. Okay. That looks good. Let's move on to shipyards next. So unfortunately, our ship lines for our passenger public transport is really not all that efficient. We have 2 unnamed territories right now, one of which I will probably change to Ukiyo. And, we've got about 400 passengers, 15% usage, and the second line has 58 passengers with 2% usage. To me, that's not as efficient as I would have liked. So I think what I'm going to do is we are just going to probably zoom in here a little bit. And let's take a look at which ones are which. So this one is just connecting to this side over here. I'm tempted to keep it because future plans, but it's hard because there's not a lot of profit happening here. I do think I want to rename this one to Ukiyo, though. So the more I think about this, the more I think I'm going to leave the public transport ship lines, the cruise lines, just as is. And honestly, it's all for future reasons. Just future reasons. I'm not going to tell you why. I'm going to try and keep it to myself. But I do want to come in here. I am going to do the same thing where we increase the price, let's say about 5 each. Just because if it's going to do this, I want to try and milk as much money out of it as I can. We'll keep the assigned ships down to about 1, though I don't think there's actually like a shipyard. We have to worry about available vehicles on this one. And yeah, we will leave that just as is for now. So while we're in the ships, let's also look at our cargo ships. And yeah, they're really not doing much for us. Really, the only beneficial cargo line that we have is the Pinecrest Junction to what I'm going to actually quickly take a look at and probably rename Ukiyo. So let's do that. To the Ukiyo shipping route. And then everything else for the most part is not doing phenomenal. Again, I'm going to just leave this because I noticed this with the trains that every now and then the cargo lines will have 0 utilization and then suddenly have something that, utilizes it. So I think for now I'm going to leave that as is. And I guess just let me know what your thoughts are down below. Do you think that these are ever going to actually be utilized and I'm just missing a piece because we are on pause? Or do you think we should delete them? I don't want to spend the money on them if we aren't actually going to get anything out of it. But I also like being able to see the ships come in and out of this harbor, and I like having the international connections for trade purposes. So next, let's take a look at our overall stock of subway trains. We currently have one subway yard that can hold 10 trains, and we have 4 lines utilizing 7 of those available 10 trains. So this means we're going to need extra tracks to have more available trains if we wish to extend any of our existing lines. Now, I also want to take a moment to discuss potential future subway expansion. So let's start with one of our very first subway lines, the Green Line. This line stretches from Bunyan's Rest Industrial Harbor Park all the way to the Pinecrest Junction city border, and currently transports about 2,900 passengers. Now, I have also toyed with the idea of extending the Green Line into Pinecrest Junction and kind of out towards the more western residential side and industrial harbor area. When I first planned Pine Harbor County, I figured I wouldn't want subway beyond the actual capital city, but now I'm a little tempted to push it further, and I want to extend it right into that west side of Pinecrest Junction, since we already have a subway station close to the eastern side at the edge of the Bunyan's Rest, and then some train stations and services even closer east near Woodbine. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Should we stray from our original plans and push the Green Line into Pinecrest Junction, or restrict the subway to just Bunyan's Rest? When considering realism, please keep in mind that each district functions like its own town or city, respectively based on its population. So Pinecrest Junction has a population of about 53,000 people, and Bunyan's Rest has a population of about 79,000, and it is growing. Now let's talk about the Blue Line. Currently, the Blue Line stretches from Sector 2 Industrial Park into the Technical Institution, has about maybe 600 passengers, and a 29% utilization rate. Right now, I really don't think I'm going to extend the Blue Line, and honestly may not even need this line by the end of our journey with Pine Harbor County. Originally, I thought maybe we'd stretch it kind of into the eastern area, but I have some plans to get some other subway lines in there, and we have a massive mountain that kind of runs into an issue for us when we're trying to keep a realistic above ground subway station. So I think for now, the Blue Line is going to stay as is, and we'll reevaluate the Blue Line maybe in another couple of episodes or so to figure out whether or not we're really going to need it. Next, we have the Red Line, which currently transports citizens from Pinecrest Junction, or the city border of Pinecrest Junction and Bunyan's Rest, to the office park we built near the canal a few episodes ago. This line is definitely still under construction, and right now only has about 190 passengers with a 17% utilization rate. So the Red Line definitely has some future plans on it, and I plan to stretch it up the eastern part of Bunyan's Rest, and it will probably run parallel and share some station points to either the Green Line or the Yellow Line respectively. Which leads us into our final line, the Yellow Line, which runs from the Technical University and right now terminates around the elevated subway station we built a few episodes ago when we filled in that big chunk of downtown Bunyan's Rest. This line, like I said, definitely under construction. It has about 30 passengers with a usage rate of 3%. As I just mentioned, this line will run parallel to some of the points to the Red Line, which means it will also connect to our eastern part of Bunyan's Rest and connect the far east and the west sides of the city itself. Now, what I wouldn't mind doing with the subway is actually trying to inch the ticket price up a little bit to see if we can have it help with our deficit at all. So let's do a little bit of a time lapse here. We're going to inch all of the ticket prices on our subway lines up a little bit. So if it's at 15, let's just try 25. And let's see how it affects our, what's the words I'm looking for? Our ridership. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for, our ridership. So let's get all of this up to 25 here. Get the Red Line next. The Yellow Line. Awesome. All right, so I think our tram situation is actually looking pretty good. We are using 68 of our 90 available tram vehicles, and we have episode 33 to thank for that, as we adjusted the tram availability and the lines during our revamp of the transit system in the city of Braeburn. I think we're also in a good spot as far as it goes for ridership and usage. The Woodbine tram line is currently the winner with about 2,200 passengers and 103% usage. The Braeburn North line has about 1,900 passengers and an 81% usage. The Braeburn South tram line has about, we'll call it 800 passengers and a 58% usage. The Braeburn East-West tram line has 1,200 passengers and 58% usage. The Woodbine to Pinecrest Junction tram line is about 1,600 passengers at a 51% usage. The Pinecrest Junction tram line is about 50% usage and 1,700 passengers. And the Braeburn to Ashton Tourism tram line is still a little bit under construction since very little has actually been built in Ashton so far. And we're going to round that to about 500 passengers and 33% usage. So episode 33 definitely benefited us a lot, I think. And I think just in general, we've got a good spread and a good amount of usage on it. I love the trams in this because each tram can actually hold 240 people. That is a huge increase over the 90 I think we used to get back in Cities Skylines 1. So yeah, trams are my best friend in this game. Ultimately, I would like to see usages between, or at least in the 90% area. So if I'm understanding this info view correctly, 90% should mean we aren't maxed for capacity on each vehicle, but the line is efficient enough that it's, worth its price. So let's take a look at each tram line in a time lapse, starting with the Woodbine tram line, and just adjust slightly to see if we can make our usage numbers a little bit better. While we're in here, let's actually also increase the ticket price for each one and take a look at how that affects at the end of our little overhaul segment here. Stop real quick right here because I'm noticing something on the Pinecrest Junction tram line. This one, I feel like I've mentioned this before, but this one really might be worth dividing into two, or maybe it was two to begin with, but we have some spots here that are chunky in terms of the ridership, how many people are waiting. So like 912 Woodland Street is right here at the end of the western part of Pinecrest Junction, and it's got 350 people waiting for it, and each train can only hold 240. Same with the 774 Woodland Street, which is just a little bit further down the road. Foggy Street, where's Foggy Street? Okay, that's here, and it's got pretty much no one, so I wonder if that's just more of a drop spot versus like a pickup. Mind you, a lot of this depends on the time of day too, so it's about 1 o'clock in the day right now. So if this was a drop spot or a pickup spot, I'm sure I would see drop more in the morning hours and pick up more in the evening because this is all industrial and office, so it's all workplaces. 2334 Sunnyside Street. Okay, that's this one right here. This whole street has been a beast. Probably since we constructed it. So, at least since episode 10. But that's holding on to 512 passengers. So what's ending up happening is the trains are getting at full capacity here and then aren't able... There's two spots here, isn't there? Yeah. There's probably two stops here, one on each side heading east and west. But the point's still in case, like the train is hitting here, it's dropping, and then it's not, it doesn't have enough capacity to pick up the next some of the next spots. So let's do this in order. So they're getting capped at Glade Street. They're already capped by the time they hit Sunnyside Street. They may or may not be dumping people onto Foggy Street, though based on those numbers, at least at this time and day, I have reason to believe they're not dumping people there. We're then still at max capacity by the time we hit Woodland Street in both spots. So what I'm getting to here is it might be worth breaking this down into 2 tram lines, or honestly, again, pulling this subway line out this way. Because then at least if we could somehow connect this out here, we could accommodate all of Western Pinecrest Junction via subway to get in between the cities. And then if we put a train, you know, somewhere here for Pinecrest Junction on the Pine Grove line, same thing, then at least Eastern Pinecrest Junction is taken care of. So let me know your thoughts on that down below. In the meantime, let's kind of continue going through fixing our vehicles and our price, which, okay, yeah, I did fix that one. I wish I could have less than 6 on this one. It's just such a waste that we have, like, I'm all the way down and we have 6 tram lines here, but don't really need it. But again, this one's under construction, so might not be a bad idea, because as we build in, you know, Ashton right here, it could end up getting much busier. So back in episode 0, I really did not think I would implement as many bus systems as we did, but the recent patch that gave us additional transit assets and just the need for the transportation type that isn't restricted to a set of tracks has kind of really grown on me. So let's take a look at the bus system for a moment and decide how we want to go moving forward. We have a few interregional buses that I do not think are as efficient as I would really like them to be, and a few in-region buses that are doing surprisingly well. So for instance, that Bunyan's Rest bus tours that we literally just created earlier this episode is already garnering about 300 passengers with 133% usage. The Saco to Bunyan's Rest is getting about, we'll call it 300 passengers, 58% usage. Amarilla to Bunyan's Rest is about 120 passengers to 51% usage. Ukiyo to Bunyan's Rest is about 113 passengers and 47% usage. However, I am going to rename this to Napore for future reasons. Flaneur to Bunyan's Rest is about 158 passengers and 16% usage. Bathrick to Bunyan's Rest is about 132, 15% usage. Ashton to Blackpool Industrial Park BRT. So this is one of the bus rapid transit systems we just implemented last episode that has about 45 passengers and a 14% usage. But again, nothing is built in Ashton yet, so this is still, I would still consider this under construction. Same with the Pine Grove red bus line with 64 passengers and this 13% usage. That actually surprises me a little bit because there is nothing in Pine Grove beyond services and a train station. A couple of shops as well, and some industry. So the fact that we already have that going right now is really surprising to me. The Blackpool Industrial Park BRT is about 10 passengers and 6% usage, which is a little disappointing because I was hoping that would garner a little bit more. But again, this could be partially because we're in the middle of a workday right now with the game paused. The Pine Grove yellow bus line is still under construction, same with the blue. So these two again, the blue and yellow Pine Grove bus lines, a lot of it is because there is nothing beyond those services and industry in Pine Grove. Nothing has actually built in residential wise yet. So I'm going to consider those still under construction when we're evaluating where we should be adding lines and what lines we should be deleting. So I do want to experiment a bit, and I want to delete the interregional bus lines, as to me it is more realistic that people would travel between the counties and states via a rail, ship, or airplane, at least when you're rescaling the game to a realistic measurement to me. So yes, in my area I have a bus that would, you know, take me to what would be my closest mega city, which would be Boston. On honestly, it's really not worth taking the bus in my opinion. I would rather just drive in. So let's go in and delete the interregional bus lines and hope that it kind of increases the utilization of the rail system instead. If this experiment goes bad, we will just re-add them. In all honesty, I don't see any harm in it, honestly, and I think it would actually alleviate a lot of our bus availability, especially because, you know, let's take Bathrick to Bunyan's Rest, for instance. There's 11 buses because it's a 58-kilometer line. If we're going to be going 58 kilometers on a bus, but not even be hitting that on a single train line, like, just public transport hierarchy for me is screeching in my head right now. So let's go through and let's mess around with this a little bit. I think we are actually going to... Oh, it's so hard because at the same time, this is our highest passenger ridership as far as it goes for all of our interregionals. Actually, no, the train's doing actually pretty good. So I take that back. Let's delete all these. Worst case, we will just come back in and add them again. So Flaneur, Bathrick, and now all we have are the ones inside Pine Harbor County itself. I think while we're looking at this screen, let's look at the Bunyan Rest bus tours, because if there's 133% usage, that's a real nice. I don't think we need more buses at this time, though. Well, maybe one. I'll give us one. And we'll go for there. I'm actually going to probably leave this at 45. Alright everyone, so we are currently looking at the downtown train systems, both interregional and regional, you know, Pine Harbor County and outside of Pine Harbor County. We have about 174,000 riders, citizens per month riding our public transportation, and right now about a deficit, we'll call it 560K an hour. Let's let the game run for a little while and let's watch how these numbers change. Alright, so I let the game run for about 2 months in-game, which was about 3 hours in real time. And what I find actually really interesting when I was looking at how the numbers were moving, at one point we actually got up to over 180,000 citizens riding on our transportation per month. And then it settled right back down to about the 172 that we're seeing now. Remember, we did start with about 174,000, so I don't know if a lot of that just had to do with the time of day, whether it was rush hour and people were going to work or not, or if really our changes didn't make any difference in our ridership. As far as it goes for the money, once again, it went down ultimately, so we're looking at about 517K an hour from the 560 that we had. I do know that the money tends to fluctuate with day and night cycle, so I don't know. Let me know your thoughts down below. Do you think we did enough to really make an impactful change for our transit system, or do you think we need to do more? And if we do need to do more, what are your suggestions? But for the time being, I think that's going to just about wrap up our viewer suggested 40th episode. Today we created a luxury downtown hotel with attached water park, pool, and gardens. In addition, we have revamped our transit system and tweaked our lines and ticket prices to suit the current demands of the city. We've also laid out a few tentative plans for future expansion. So, if you enjoyed today's episode, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to check out the entire Pine Harbor County playlist in the description below, especially if you're looking for something to binge watch. Until next time, I hope everyone has a phenomenal week.